The transport vessel gently slowed as it approached the dazzling spires of Galactic Academy 7. Inside, Jinnah Park clutched her small travel bag tightly against her chest, taking deep breaths to steady herself. This wasn't her first undercover mission, but it might be her most important one. Through the viewport, she watched alien students of various species moving between buildings. Some floated, others slithered, many walked on different numbers of legs. She'd studied them all, of course, but seeing them in person still gave her a thrill. "Prepare for docking," announced the ship's AI. "All passengers for Galactic Academy 7, please gather your belongings." Jinnah smoothed down her simple gray uniform, designed to match Earth's official diplomatic style. Everything about her appearance had been carefully chosen to convey ordinary human teenager, from her height, shorter than average, to her build, slender, with no obvious muscle definition, to her slightly nervous mannerisms. The truth was far different. Under her carefully crafted human disguise, Jinnah was a Valorian, one of the ancient beings who had helped establish the Galactic Confederation thousands of years ago before retreating into self-imposed exile. Her people had watched from afar as the younger races took control, hoping they would maintain the principles of equality and peace that formed the Confederation's foundation. Recent reports suggested otherwise. The ship docked with a soft thud. Jinnah waited until most passengers had departed before stepping out into the arrival bay. The air smelled different here, cleaner but with unfamiliar undertones of alien biochemistry. "Earth Representative Park Jinnah?" A tall administrator approached, datapad in hand. His name badge identified him as Tae-Wan. Jinnah bowed slightly. "Yes, that's me. Welcome to Galactic Academy 7. I'm Administrative Officer Tae-Wan. I've been assigned to help you settle in." His tone was professionally polite but lacked warmth. "Earth's admission to the Confederation has been unusual. You're our first human student." "I understand," Jinnah replied. "We're grateful for the opportunity." Tae-Wan gestured toward the main building. "Your quarters have been prepared in the Eastern Wing. Your class schedule has been uploaded to your communication device. Classes begin tomorrow." As they walked through the vast main hall, Jinnah felt the stares. Some were merely curious, but others held obvious disdain. Earth was the newest member of the Confederation, having only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. Many species considered humans primitive upstarts who had been admitted too quickly for political reasons. They weren't entirely wrong about the political part, though Jinnah knew the full story was more complex. The Valorian High Council had quietly influenced the decision, wanting their agent positioned within the Academy. "The Eastern Wing houses students from newer member worlds," Tae-Wan explained as they entered a separate building. "You'll find the facilities adequate." Jinnah noticed he didn't say comfortable or pleasant. The Eastern Wing was clearly older and less maintained than the central buildings she'd seen. "Your room is here." Tae-Wan waved his hand over a sensor and a door slid open, revealing a small, sparse room with basic furnishings. The cafeteria is on the ground level. Mealtimes are strictly observed. "Thank you for your help," Jinnah said. Tae-Wan nodded and turned to leave, then paused. "A word of advice. Some students here come from species with long histories and significant influence. It would be wise to remember your place as a representative of Earth. Don't draw unnecessary attention." After he left, Jinnah unpacked her few possessions and activated the room's computer terminal. She needed to familiarize herself with the layout of the academy before tomorrow. Her first test came sooner than expected. While exploring the nearest commons area that evening, she encountered a group of students lounging around a holographic game table. Their conversation hushed as she entered. "Well, look what we have here," said one of them, a blue-skinned humanoid with ridged features. "The new Earth pet." Jinnah recognized his species immediately. Centaurian, specifically from the aristocratic northern continent. His expensive accessories and confident posture suggested family wealth and influence. "Hello," she said simply. "I'm Jinnah." "We know who you are," the Centaurian replied, standing to his full height, nearly 2 feet taller than Jinnah. "I'm Haksun. My father sits on the Confederation Security Council." His friends snickered. There were 5 of them, each from different species but all wearing the premium uniforms that marked them as from powerful, established worlds. "Nice to meet you," Gina said, keeping her voice even. She could have incapacitated all of them in under 3 seconds if she wanted to, but that wasn't her mission. "Is it true humans still use combustion engines on their home planet?" asked another student, this one with scaled skin and vertical pupils. Before Gina could answer, Haksun interrupted. "They only figured out how to leave their own solar system because they found ancient tech and reverse engineered it. They're not real scientists." "That's not accurate," Gina said calmly. "Earth developed its own—" "Look, it speaks." Haksun laughed. "Listen, little human, this academy is for the best minds in the Confederation. You're only here because the Council wanted a diplomatic gesture. Don't forget that." As Gina moved to leave, Haksun deliberately stepped into her path, causing her to bump into him. He exaggerated the impact, staggering backward dramatically. "Careful. Humans might be weak, but they're apparently clumsy too." The group's laughter followed Gina as she walked away. She needed to maintain her cover as an ordinary human teenager, which meant appearing affected by their bullying while gathering information about the Academy's true politics. Back in her room, Gina sent her first encrypted report to the Valorian observation post. The message seemed like a normal video call to her parents back on Earth, but contained coded information about the Academy's social hierarchy and the clear prejudice against newer species. Looking out her window at the unfamiliar stars, Gina wondered how long it would take before she'd need to show these arrogant students what a primitive human could really do. But that wasn't the plan. Not yet, anyway. Tomorrow would bring classes, more encounters, and more information. The real test would be how long she could endure their harassment without revealing even a hint of her true abilities. Gina arrived early to her first theoretical physics class, choosing a seat near the back where she could observe everyone. The classroom filled quickly with students of various species, many casting curious glances her way. Some whispered behind their hands while pointing in her direction, not realizing her enhanced hearing caught every word. "That's the human. Looks so fragile. Probably won't last a week." Professor Yoongi entered the room, his 4 arms carrying different teaching devices. A respected Calcorian physicist, he had 6 eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Welcome to Advanced Theoretical Physics," he announced. "Today we begin with quantum tunneling applications in interstellar travel." Gina listened attentively, though the material was elementary by Valorian standards. When Professor Yoongi asked a particularly challenging question about dimensional folding that left the class silent, Gina hesitated. Drawing attention wasn't part of her mission, but neither was playing completely ignorant. She raised her hand. "The Earth student?" Professor Yoongi sounded surprised. "Go ahead." "The formula fails to account for temporal displacement in non-Euclidean space," Gina explained. "If you adjust the 3rd variable to include the Hawking constant, the equation balances." Silence fell across the classroom. Professor Yoongi blinked several of his eyes in succession. "That's correct. Impressively so." He studied Gina with newfound interest. "Where did you learn this? Earth's published research hasn't reached this level." Gina felt Haksun's glare from across the room. "I had a good teacher back home," she replied simply. After class, Gina gathered her materials when Haksun and 3 friends surrounded her desk. "Quite a performance," he said coldly. "Did they program you with answers before sending you here? Or maybe you have an implant feeding you information?" "I studied hard," Gina replied, standing her ground despite being significantly shorter than everyone around her. "Same as you." One of Haksun's friends, a reptilian Draxi with amber eyes, leaned closer. "Nobody likes a cheater, Earth girl." "I'm not cheating." "We'll see about that," Haksun sneered. "The practical exam next week will expose whatever tricks you're using." Throughout the following days, Gina continued to excel in her classes. In galactic history, she corrected the professor on details about the Rigelian conflict, information she knew firsthand, having been there centuries ago, though she carefully framed her knowledge as coming from obscure Earth historical texts. In biochemistry, Her understanding of interspecies cellular structures earned her top marks on the first assignment. Each academic success intensified the hostility from Haksun's group. They began sitting around her in the cafeteria, making it difficult for other students to approach her. Jinna wasn't completely alone, though. A bioluminescent Aquarian named Sumi had been assigned as her lab partner in biochemistry. Unlike the others, Sumi seemed genuinely curious about Earth and humans. "Don't mind Haksun and his followers," Sumi told Jinna as they worked together. "They treat anyone from newer worlds the same way. My planet joined the Confederation only 50 years ago, and they still call us water peasants behind our backs." "Why does the Academy allow it?" Jinna asked. Sumi's skin flashed a pattern that indicated resignation. "Their families fund half the research programs here. Money talks even in the supposedly equal Confederation. The upcoming physics practical exam required students to build a working gravitational field modulator. Jinna worked on hers in the evening hours when the lab was mostly empty. On the night before the exam, she returned to find her project completely disassembled, its key components missing. A message flashed on her workstation. "Primitive species. Should stick to primitive technology." Jinna stayed up all night rebuilding her project from scratch. She deliberately included small inefficiencies to make it look like human-level technology, while ensuring it would still function properly. The day of the exam arrived. One by one, students presented their modulators for testing. When Jinna's turn came, she placed her hastily rebuilt device on the testing platform. "This looks rudimentary," Professor Yoongi commented. "I had to make some last-minute adjustments," Jinna replied, not mentioning the sabotage. She activated the device. It hummed to life, generating a perfect gravitational field that lifted the test objects in exactly the required pattern. Despite the simple exterior, its function was flawless. Professor Yoongi nodded approvingly. "Unconventional design, but excellent results. Full marks." From across the room, Jinna saw Haksun's face darken with anger. Later that day, Jinna headed to the zero-gravity physical education class. This was always risky for her. Her Valorian physiology responded differently to gravity changes, and she had to constantly focus on appearing to struggle like a human would. The class took place in a massive spherical chamber, where gravity could be adjusted in different zones. Today's exercise required students to navigate through varying gravity fields, to retrieve objects and return them to the starting point. Jinna had just entered a 1.5 G section when the gravity suddenly intensified dramatically. She looked up to see Haksun at the controls surrounded by his friends. The gravity meter now showed 3G, triple Earth's normal gravity. For a regular human, this would be nearly impossible to stand under, let alone move. Around her, other students in the zone dropped to their knees or flattened against the floor. Jinna had to make a split-second decision. Her Valorian physiology could easily handle 3G, but showing that would blow her cover. She allowed herself to bend slightly at the knees, making it appear she was struggling while still remaining upright. The effort of pretending to be affected was actually harder than simply withstanding the gravity. "What's wrong, human?" Haksun called out. "Feeling a little heavy?" Jinna took a labored step forward, then another. She needed to show difficulty without completely collapsing. The instructor was on the other side of the gym, unaware of the tampering. As Jinna forced herself to move slowly through the crushing gravity, she noticed someone watching her intently, a quiet Arcturan student named Do-hyun. Unlike the others, he wasn't laughing. His expression showed suspicion and curiosity. For just a moment, Jinna's concentration slipped, and her eyes flashed with their natural light, a brief glimmer of the cosmic energy that flowed through Valorian beings. She quickly suppressed it, but not before Do-hyun noticed. Jinna dropped to one knee, pretending the gravity had finally overcome her strength. The instructor spotted the situation and rushed over, restoring normal gravity levels and reprimanding Haksun. "This behavior is unacceptable. You could have seriously injured your classmates." Haksun shrugged. "It was just a calibration error. Besides, these gravity levels aren't dangerous for advanced species." Jinna said nothing as she stood up, brushing herself off. But as students filed out of the gym, she felt Do-hyun's eyes following her. Someone was starting to see through her disguise, and that complicated everything. That evening, as Jinna sent her encrypted report to the Valorian Council, she included a note about possibly being compromised. The response came quickly. Maintain. Cover at all costs. Mission priority increased. Confederation corruption more extensive than initially believed. Jinna stared at the message, knowing that the harassment she'd experienced so far was likely just the beginning. Whatever secrets the Academy held, powerful people wanted them kept hidden, and the presence of a supposedly primitive human excelling in their midst was clearly making some people very nervous. The announcement came during breakfast in the main cafeteria. Principal Gi-hun's holographic image appeared above each table, his expression solemn as he addressed the student body. Attention all students. The annual Galactic Academic Excellence Competition will commence in exactly 1 week. As tradition dictates, each species will select one representative to showcase their scientific achievements. The winning project will secure exclusive research funding and scholarship opportunities for all students from the winner's homeworld for the next decade. Jinna felt dozens of eyes turn toward her. As the only human at the Academy, she would automatically represent Earth, a planet many still considered unworthy of Confederation membership. Sumi leaned across the table, her skin pulsing with concerned blue patterns. This is a big deal, Jinna. The competition determines resource allocation throughout the educational system. No newly admitted species has ever placed in the top 10. I'll do my best, Jinna replied, keeping her voice measured despite the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. You don't understand, Sumi whispered. Haksun's cousin won last year. His family has dominated this competition for 3 generations. They consider it their birthright. Across the cafeteria, Haksun was already holding court among his followers, gesturing animatedly. When he caught Jinna looking his way, he smiled coldly and made a crushing motion with his hand. Later that day, Jinna received a message from Professor Yoongi requesting her presence in his laboratory. When she arrived, he was hunched over, a complex device all 6 eyes focused on minute adjustments. Park Jinna, he acknowledged without looking up. Your performance in my class has been unexpected. I'm curious about the direction of your competition project. I was considering something related to renewable energy conversion, Jinna said carefully. This was a field where Earth genuinely had made recent advances, so her knowledge wouldn't seem suspicious. Interesting. Professor Yoongi finally turned to face her. The competition values innovation above all. Remember that existing technologies, even if new to one species, do not score highly when they've been utilized elsewhere in the Confederation. Massey Jinna understood the hidden message. Her project needed to be genuinely groundbreaking, not just advanced by human standards. This complicated matters. She needed to showcase something impressive enough to compete but not so revolutionary that it would raise questions about its origin. Thank you for the guidance, Professor. As Jinna left the laboratory, she noticed Do-hyun waiting in the corridor, pretending to study a wall display. He had been watching her more closely since the gravity room incident. Can I help you with something? Jinna asked directly. Do-hyun's 4-fingered hand closed the data file he'd been pretending to read. Perhaps we should talk somewhere private. They found an empty study room and Jinna carefully positioned herself near the exit. If Do-hyun knew too much, she might need to leave quickly. I've been researching some old texts, Do-hyun began, without preamble. Historical archives about the founding of the Confederation. Jinna kept her expression neutral. That sounds fascinating. It is. Especially the sections about the Valorians. Do-hyun watched her face carefully. Most students think they're just legends, but the archives contain detailed descriptions, including their ability to withstand extreme gravitational forces and their distinctive eye illumination when using their abilities. Gina's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. I'm not familiar with those legends. No? Do-hyun reached into his bag and removed an ancient tablet. This contains a visual record from the Confederation founding ceremony. The Valorian representatives are quite distinctive. Their physical structure appears almost exactly like humans, except when they use their abilities. He activated the tablet, showing footage of beings who looked remarkably like Jinnah in her natural state. "Why are you telling me this?" Jinnah asked. "Because the Valorians disappeared 3,000 years ago, supposedly retreating to observe rather than interfere." Do-hyun leaned forward. "And now, just as the Confederation begins adopting increasingly militaristic policies, a human student arrives who can stand in triple gravity and whose eyes occasionally glow with inner light." Jinnah considered denying everything, but something in Do-hyun's demeanor stopped her. He wasn't threatening, he seemed hopeful. "If I were such a being," Jinnah said carefully, "why would I reveal myself to you?" "Because you need allies," Do-hyun replied. "My people, the Arcturans, were among the first to join the Confederation after its founding. We've watched it drift from its original principles of equality and peace. Now, powerful families like Haksun's control most key positions and militarization increases yearly." Jinnah remained silent, neither confirming nor denying his theory. "I don't need you to admit anything," Do-hyun continued. "But if you're here to evaluate the Confederation, you should know not all of us support what it's becoming. Some of us remember the original vision." Before Jinnah could respond, her communication device chimed with an academy-wide alert. "All students report to the main auditorium for competition briefing." "Think about what I said," Do-hyun told her as they parted ways. "You're not alone in wanting things to change." The briefing outlined the competition's strict guidelines. Projects would be secured in the high-security laboratory wing, with access limited to each project's creator. Final presentations would occur before a panel including representatives from the Confederation Central Council. As Jinnah left the auditorium, Haksun and his friends blocked her path. "Excited for the competition, Earthgirl?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I hope you've prepared something impressive. It would be embarrassing for your primitive world to finish last." "I'll do my best," Jinnah replied evenly. "We're all so curious about human innovation," said the Draxi standing beside Haksun. "Perhaps you could give us a preview?" "Projects are confidential until presentation day," Jinnah reminded them. Of course," Haksun laughed. "We'll just have to wait and see. Though accidents do happen in laboratories. Equipment malfunctions. Data gets corrupted, especially when security systems are so easily bypassed." The threat was clear. Jinnah spent the next 5 days working on her project, a modified energy converter that incorporated some advanced principles but remained plausibly within enhanced human capabilities. She also installed her own security measures, far beyond what the Academy provided. The night before the competition, Jinnah pretended to leave her laboratory, but actually remained hidden inside, suspecting Haksun would attempt sabotage. Sure enough, just before midnight, the security panel beside her door beeped softly as someone overrode the access codes. Haksun entered with 2 companions, moving quietly toward her project. As they reached for her device, a shimmering field activated around them, freezing them in place, a temporal stasis bubble that Jinnah had installed. Jinnah stepped from the shadows, looking for something. The trapped students could only move their eyes, widening in shock at her appearance. "This is a standard security feature," Jinnah lied, knowing no such technology existed at the Academy. "It automatically notifies security when triggered." She deactivated the field, releasing them. "I could report this, but I won't. This time. The competition should be won on merit, don't you think?" Haksun's face flushed dark blue with rage and embarrassment. "How did you? This isn't standard security." "No?" Jinnah raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps humans aren't as primitive as you thought." After they left, Jinnah sent what might be her most important report yet to the Valorian Council. The increasing corruption and power concentration within the Confederation was worse than they had feared. Something fundamental had shifted away from the original vision of cooperation and equality. As she finished her project preparations, Jinnah knew tomorrow would change everything, not just for her mission, but potentially for the future of the Confederation itself. What she didn't know was that events were already in motion, that would force her hand far sooner than planned. The morning of the competition dawned with an air of excitement and tension throughout Galactic Academy 7. Students hurried through the corridors, making last-minute preparations or finding good seats in the grand presentation hall. Jinna stood calmly at her assigned preparation station, running final diagnostics on her energy converter project. 57 student representatives from across the galaxy were arranged in a circular pattern around the enormous hall, each with their own display area. The transparent dome ceiling revealed the swirling nebula above the academy, casting everything in a soft purple light. Jinna caught glimpses of Hak Sun across the hall, surrounded by his clan members who had arrived specifically for the event. His family's distinctive blue skin and silver ceremonial garments stood out among the crowd. He appeared confident despite the previous night's failed sabotage attempt, which made Jinna uneasy. "Good luck," said Sumi, stopping by Jinna's station. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with friendly yellow light. "Your project looks amazing." "Thanks," Jinna replied. "Have you seen Do-hyun today?" "He's helping with security, I think. There are a lot of important officials here." Principal Gi-hun appeared on the central platform, raising his hands for silence. "Distinguished guests, faculty, and students, welcome to the 327th Annual Galactic Academic Excellence Competition. Today's presentations will begin with..." A deafening alarm cut through his words, followed by the emergency containment shields slamming down over every exit. Red warning lights pulsed throughout the hall as the security system announced, "Attention, external breach detected, lockdown protocols initiated." Confused murmurs swept through the crowd. This was no drill. Jinna had studied the Academy's emergency procedures thoroughly. Something was seriously wrong. The main entrance doors exploded inward with a thunderous boom. Through the smoke marched 24 armed soldiers in matte black armor, bearing the insignia of the Confederation Military Elite Force, but with a crucial difference. Instead of the standard blue stripe, these uniforms featured a red slash across the chest. "Nobody move," shouted their leader, a tall figure whose helmet retracted to reveal sharp features and cold eyes. "I am General Ji-ho of the Confederation Reformation Force. This academy is now under our control." Faculty members moved protectively in front of their students as parents and officials backed away from the armed intruders. Jinna remained perfectly still, assessing the situation. These weren't official military. This was a rogue faction. "What is the meaning of this?" Principal Gi-hun demanded, stepping forward. "This is a peaceful academic institution," General Ji-ho laughed. "Peaceful? This academy has been developing military technology disguised as scientific research for decades. Today we're taking control of that research." He turned to address the crowd. "The Confederation has grown soft, making peace with primitive species while our enemies grow stronger. That ends now." His soldiers spread throughout the hall, securing positions at each exit. Jinna noticed they were particularly interested in the students' competition projects, scanning each one with handheld devices. "We'll be evaluating all research conducted here," Ji-ho continued. "Those projects deemed valuable to our cause will be requisitioned. Those of you with useful skills will have the opportunity to serve the new confederation we're building." Jinna caught Do-hyun's eye across the room. He gave her the slightest nod, a signal they'd prepared for emergency situations. They both understood this was no random attack. The timing, during the biggest gathering of the year with representatives from the Confederation Central Council present, was deliberate. "Sir," one soldier approached General Ji-ho. "We've completed initial scans. Several projects show military potential, particularly those from sectors 7, 12, and 23. Jinna's station was in Sector 23. Her energy converter, while disguised as a moderate advancement, contained principles that could be weaponized by someone who understood its full capability." General Ji-ho walked directly to Hak Sun's station. "Ah, the future leader of the Centaurian delegation. Your family has been quite resistant to our movement." Hak Sun straightened his shoulders. "My father will have you executed for this treasonous act." "Your father," Ji-ho said coldly, "is being dealt with as we speak. but perhaps you could still be useful." He gestured to one of his soldiers. "This young Centaurian claims to have valuable information about classified projects. Let's hear what he has to say." Haksun's confidence wavered momentarily before returning. "There are projects here beyond what you've detected. The human representative has technology that shouldn't be possible for their species." Jinna tensed as Jiho's gaze shifted to her. This was escalating faster than she'd anticipated. "The human?" Jiho walked slowly toward Jinna's station. "Earth was admitted to the Confederation against my organization's strong objections. Show me this supposedly advanced technology." Jinna stood her ground as the general examined her project. "It's just an energy converter," she explained. "More efficient than previous models, but nothing revolutionary." Jiho's scanner beeped as he passed it over her device. "Interesting. The readings suggest otherwise." He turned to Haksun. "What else do you know about this human?" Haksun stepped forward eagerly. "She has abilities no human should have. I've seen her withstand triple gravity without difficulty, and her quarters have security technology far beyond Academy standards." "Is that so?" Jiho's interest sharpened. "Perhaps we should test these claims." He pulled out his sidearm, a pulse, disruptor capable of stunning or killing depending on the setting, and aimed it directly at Haksun. "Wait, what are you doing?" Haksun's eyes widened with fear. "Testing a theory," Jiho replied coldly. "If the human has special abilities, let's see if she uses them to save an informant who just betrayed her." Jinna had milliseconds to decide. Her mission was to remain undercover, to gather information without revealing her true nature. But Jiho's finger was already tightening on the trigger, the weapon humming as it charged. Without conscious thought, Jinna moved. To the watching crowd, she seemed to blur between locations. One moment standing at her station, the next positioned between Haksun and the general's weapon just as it fired. Jinna's hand shot up, intercepting the energy blast. The pulse hit her palm and dispersed harmlessly around her body in ripples of blue light. Her human appearance flickered momentarily, revealing a glimpse of her true form, skin shimming with cosmic energy, eyes glowing with inner light. Gasps echoed throughout the hall as students, faculty, and invaders alike witnessed something none of them had seen before. Jinna slowly lowered her hand, her appearance stabilizing back into human form. "You came to the wrong school," she said calmly to Jiho, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that made several soldiers step back involuntarily. Jiho's shock quickly transformed into calculation. Well, it seems we have something far more valuable than expected." He gestured to his soldiers. "Secure the human. Priority 1. Jinna stood protectively in front of the still-stunned Haksun, knowing the quiet role she had maintained for months was over. Her mission had just become much more complicated and much more overt. "I don't think you understand what's happening here," she told Jiho, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "But you're about to find out." The soldiers surrounding Jinna raised their weapons, targeting systems locking onto her from multiple angles. She could sense their nervousness, their elevated heart rates, the slight tremors in their trigger fingers. Humans and most other species showed similar physical signs of fear, something Jinna had studied extensively during her time among them. "Stand down," Jinna said quietly. "You don't want to do this." General Jiho's expression hardened. "Fire!" Energy blasts erupted from a dozen weapons simultaneously. The crowd screamed as destructive beams converged on Jinna's position, only to stop mid-air, frozen in shimmering suspension inches from her body. With a gentle wave of her hand, the energy dissipated harmlessly into the air like morning mist. Jinna's human disguise was fading. Her skin began to shimmer with a subtle glow, tiny points of light visible just beneath the surface like stars seen through thin clouds. Her dark hair lifted slightly as if caught in an invisible breeze. "What are you?" Jiho demanded, backing away. "Someone who's been watching and waiting," Jinna replied, her voice carrying easily through the now silent hall. "Someone who hoped the Confederation would stay true to its founding principles without intervention." She took a step forward, and the armed soldiers involuntarily stepped back. I'm disappointed to see how wrong we were. Behind her, Haksun remained frozen in place, his expression a mixture of fear and awe. You're not human at all, he whispered. A soldier tried to flank Jinnah, but with a casual gesture she created a force field that gently pushed him back. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. Jinnah turned her attention to the students and other civilians. Everyone stay calm. Move toward the central platform and stay together. With a sweeping motion of her arm, a protective barrier formed around the civilians, shielding them from stray weapons fire. Fascinating, Jiho said, studying her. His initial shock was giving way to calculating interest. You're one of the Valorians, aren't you? The founders who disappeared millennia ago. We thought you were just legends. Sometimes legends return when they're needed most, Gina replied. Jiho's hand moved to a device on his wrist. You might be powerful, but you're only one being. My forces have secured the entire academy. Surrender now, and we can discuss terms. Instead of answering, Jinnah closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, they blazed with inner light. I've just disabled all your ship's navigation systems and locked down their weapons. Your forces outside this room are currently contained in temporal stasis fields. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Jiho's face. He pressed his communication device. Squad leaders, report. Only static answered him. Jinnah turned to the civilians huddled on the platform. Is anyone injured? Professor Yoongi stepped forward. No injuries here, but they've planted explosive devices throughout the academy. They threatened to detonate them if anyone resisted. Jiho smiled coldly. Indeed, and they're on a dead man switch. If anything happens to me, the entire academy goes up in flames. Jinnah studied him for a moment, then sighed. That's a problem. Easily solved. She disappeared in a flash of light, startling everyone. Where did she? Jiho began, but before he could finish, Jinnah reappeared directly in front of him, holding a small metal device. Looking for this? She asked, showing him the detonator she'd removed from his inside pocket without him even feeling it. I've already located and neutralized all 17 explosives your team planted. The academy is secure. Jiho lunged for her, but Jinnah simply sidestepped at a speed no one could follow. She grabbed his arm and with minimal effort lifted him off the ground with one hand. The Valorians didn't abandon this galaxy, she explained, her voice carrying throughout the hall. We have been watching, waiting, and now, judging. She set Jiho down and stepped back. With a wave of her hand, all the invaders' weapons dissolved into harmless particles that floated away like dust. The soldiers looked at their empty hands in shock. For 3,000 years we observed from a distance, hoping the younger races would maintain the peace and equality that formed the foundation of the Confederation. Jinnah continued, addressing everyone now. We intervened only when absolutely necessary, usually through subtle means. But recent developments, the militarization, the growing hierarchy of species, the corruption, have become too concerning to ignore. Do-hyun stepped forward from among the students. The old texts were right. The Valorians were our guardians all along. Jinnah nodded. Not guardians exactly. More like concerned parents who wanted their children to learn independence. But sometimes children need guidance to find their way back to the right path. The main doors to the hall slid open, and Confederation security forces rushed in, led by officials wearing the formal insignia of the Central Council. They stopped short at the scene before them, disarmed invaders, civilians protected behind a shimmering barrier, and Jinnah standing in the center, her human disguise now completely gone. The legitimate authorities have arrived, Jinnah announced. It seems not all of the Confederation's leadership was compromised. She turned to face the newcomers. I am Jinnah of the Valorian High Council. We request an emergency session of the full Confederation Assembly to address the serious concerns that have brought me here. Hours later, as the Academy returned to a semblance of normalcy, Jinnah found herself in the principal's office with a small group that included Haksun, Do-hyun, Sumi, and several faculty members. The Central Council representatives had taken General Jiho and his co-conspirators into custody, promising a full investigation into the extent of their movement. Hak Sun hadn't spoken since the confrontation. He sat apart from the others, eyes fixed on the floor. "I should apologize," Gina said, breaking the silence. "I deceived all of you about my identity." "Why reveal yourself now?" Professor Yoongi asked. "Your kind has remained hidden for millennia. Why expose yourself to save those who tormented you?" Jinna glanced at Haksun. "Because that's precisely why the Valorians helped found the Confederation. To protect all beings, not just those we agree with, or those who treat us well." Haksun finally looked up. "You saved my life after I tried to humiliate you, after I betrayed you to Jiho. Why? Your actions were born from prejudice and ignorance, not true malice," Jinna replied, "and prejudice can be unlearned." She turned to address everyone. "The Valorians have been watching Earth for centuries. Humans fascinated us, so physically fragile compared to many species, yet incredibly resilient in spirit. They take risks, make mistakes, but keep trying. They're flawed, but capable of remarkable growth and compassion. We thought humans were weak because they were new to the stars," Haksun said quietly. "But you're not human at all." "That's where you're wrong," Jinna responded with a small smile. "I've lived among humans for decades. They took me in, taught me compassion and determination, in ways my own people had forgotten. They're not weak, they're just young, and they have more potential than you can imagine." She stood up, her form shifting subtly. "The Valorian Council will be sending representatives to every major institution in the Confederation, not to take control, but to guide and remind everyone of the principles we once all shared." "What happens now?" Sumi asked. "Now," Jinna said, "we rebuild. The competition will continue, but with a new focus. Collaborative projects that bring species together rather than setting them against each other. And I'll be staying at the academy, but in a new role." The next morning, students gathered in the reassembled presentation hall. Principal Gihun introduced Jinna not as the human transfer student, but as Ambassador Jinna of the Valorian High Council and the Academy's new instructor in interspecies ethics and cooperation. Jinna surveyed her first class. In the front row sat Haksun, looking decidedly less arrogant than before. Beside him were Do-hyun, Sumi, and students from dozens of worlds across the galaxy. "Our first lesson," Jinna began, "is about looking beyond appearances. The universe rarely matches our expectations, and those we dismiss as weak or primitive might surprise us with their strength and wisdom." As she spoke, Jinna noticed Haksun taking careful notes, his expression thoughtful rather than dismissive. Perhaps there was hope for the Confederation after all. Outside the classroom windows, ships bearing the ancient insignia of the Valorian Council were arriving, not as conquerors but as returned founders ready to help guide the galaxy back to the path of peace and cooperation they had envisioned at the beginning. It had taken the harassment of a supposed human transfer student to reveal a mighty alien, but in doing so it had also revealed a path forward for all species to walk together.